Hey everybody, it's me, Angela Walters from quiltingismytherapy.com, and welcome to this week's live chat. I gotta tell you, I was a little rusty getting everything up and ready to go because it's been a couple weeks due to the holidays and the new year, but I'm so glad to be with you today, chatting about one of my favorite things, quilting. As always, I have Jessica behind the computer, monitoring the chat, writing down your questions, so if there's something you have a question about, be sure to leave that in the comments. Now, today's live chat, we're gonna talk about the upcoming Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along video series and kind of talk through how to participate in that, but I also have a giveaway for you all if you're watching live. So if you're watching live, you're going to get the opportunity to win a quilt kit from the Heart of Mine quilt. We're going to talk about that here in a second. So leave your name in the comments and Jessica will pick a lucky winner at the end and I'll announce that. So super excited to get going on to that. All right, first of all, what is the Heart of Mine? Well, I released a new Midnight Quilter episode just the other day, and then today the Just Quilting part came out, or the quilting part. So it's just a cute little easy wall hanging you can make and have fun with the half square triangle, making adorable little heart for Valentine's Day. So super excited about that. Now, beyond that, so good luck to you all. I hope you win it. But beyond that, let's talk about the upcoming Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along video series, Arcs, Curves, and Points with Rulers. Now, this is a total aside. This is not related to anything, but I was thinking earlier, if I had known how many times I would have to say the Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along video series out loud, I probably would have named it something different. So it's a little bit of a mouthful. Hopefully you're not tired of hearing me say it. But if you're not sure what I'm talking about, it's a video series where we get to quilt together through a technique or a project, and this one is all about machine quilting arcs, curves, and points with rulers. So this is kind of coming up pretty soon. It's going to be a lot of fun because we're going to learn how to use some different types of rulers to create a lot of cool effects on our quilt. But first of all, before we talk about participating in it, let's talk about the updated schedule. Have you heard the saying, like, the best laid plans? You know, you always have these great ideas, and this video series was supposed to start on the 13th. However, the demand for all the products was amazing. You guys, so awesome. I can't believe how many orders came in, but we're holding on rulers. So Creative Grids is working frantically to make the rulers that we need, and we are waiting as patiently as possible to get them and get them shipped out. They are en route. This is what we hear. It's kind of like waiting for the tooth fairy to come or Santa to bring the presents, but as soon as they come, we will get them shipped out to you. So if you're waiting on orders, I'm so sorry, it's coming. But to help kind of ease this a little bit, we've decided to put off the challenge for a week. So I've adjusted the schedule slightly. We're going to start on January 20th, and that's when the first video will come out. So apologize for the inconvenience. Thank you for everybody being so patient with that. Like I said, we just kind of caught us off guard how many rulers we would need. So very, very excited about that. Now, beyond that though, when it does start, we're going to kind of talk about how you can participate along in it, like kind of what you need to do to get going. And it's the perfect time to ask any questions if you're not sure about what you're going to do with it. So first of all, let's talk about the supplies. Like I said, we're going to be quilting with rulers. So for all of my Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along video series, there are no required supplies. I want to make it as easy as possible for you to participate with me because I love machine quilting. It's my favorite part, and I want you to love it as much as I do. This one, you will need some rulers. Now, I'm going to be using the Shelly Dot and Smiley rulers that I designed with Creative Grids. However, you don't have to have those. You can use any rulers because we're going to learn how to adapt rulers for blocks that are different sizes. Because the truth of the matter is, you can have a ton of arc rulers and still come across a quilt block that it doesn't fit into, and that's never fun. So if you're like, I don't have a Smiley, I don't want to get one, I have an arc ruler, great, just grab it. That's the most important thing, an arc ruler. If you only can get one thing, get yourself an arc ruler of any size, and we'll learn how to use that on our blocks. But then beyond that, we're going to talk about, how to do cutouts with the dot ruler. But if you don't have dot, I'm going to show you how you can do it with your curved ruler. So it's going to be helpful if you have the rulers, but it's not required. Just have at least one curved ruler and we can get going with it. So hopefully that kind of puts you at ease a little bit. Now, through the video series, I'm going to be quilting on the panel. This is something I've been doing for years where I design a quilt panel that goes along with the series. And so if you want to, you have the opportunity to order that. We still have a few in stock, so you can order if you want. We have some different sizes. We have a smaller one and a larger one, and then we also have a mini one. So depending on how motivated you are or how much time you want to put into it, you can kind of pick the size that works for you. So kind of making it, customizable. And we also have coordinating products. I know I've talked about this before, but if you want to get the thread collection or the borders or the backing, you can still get all of that. All you have to do is click the link in the description box below. And while I do appreciate your orders, like I said, it is not required to participate. All you really need is a free motion foot, an arced ruler, and something to quilt on. I promise, if you're new to machine quilting, it's going to be a lot of fun, maybe a little stressful in the beginning, but by the time we're done, you're going to feel more comfortable with it. So now that we kind of got the supplies out, I'm going to show you, kind of talk through what we're going to be learning and in what placement we're going to be working through it. The reason I like to do this before we get started is sometimes it's just kind of nice to see the roadmap before you start the journey. And this is when I start to think through the free motion series or what I'm going to teach, I kind of divide it up into different lessons. And sometimes the lessons are a particular technique, and sometimes each lesson is a part of the quilt. And in this example or this challenge, we're going to be working through the parts of the quilt. So it's going to be kind of easy to see our path as we kind of go through it. So we're going to start in the center. And the first week, we're going to learn how to use our rulers to make motifs and how to adjust it into blocks and quilt some different stuff. So when you're watching the video, you might feel like, wow, we're learning a lot of different little techniques within the same thing, but it's just kind of approaching that one area of our panel. Now, for all of you out there that are watching that quilts on a long arm, hold on a second, we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. So for here, we're going to work through that very center. Now, when you're quilting on a sewing machine, you can start anywhere you want on the quilt. I like to start in the center because it's never heavier than it is at that moment. And it just makes sense for this particular challenge to start in that center. So we're going to be doing a lot within that middle part. Like I said, curves and motifs and kind of jumping into each of the designs. Now, one thing I say in the videos, which you'll hear when you watch them, is each design, I kind of picked out the designs because they look amazing on your quilts. But I also picked them because they have teachable skills that you can apply. So for instance, motifs, we're learning this cool design, but we're also learning how to use a ruler in all different directions. So it's kind of like a twofold kind of thing. So even if you're looking at something and you're like, oh, I don't love that design, I promise it's worth practicing because there's a takeaway skill that goes with it. So that'll be the first week. And then we're going to kind of progressively move out through the panel through the 4-week video series. So the next week will be that first kind of ring. This is also going to be interesting when you're working on long arm because how you approach the quilt is going to be a little bit different. So again, we're going to talk about that here in a second. But as far as the video goes, that's what we're approaching in that area. And for that, we're just learning some different designs for those curved kind of blocks. Now, one of the things I say in the video, because I'm like, these are really cool designs and they are really cool for these curved blocks, but they're also techniques that you can apply to other shapes as well. So even if you're watching and you're like, but I'm never going to make a curved block quilt, I promise you can apply these to other blocks too. So it's definitely something I want you to be able to take those skills and apply in different areas and different quilts. I'm sure you've heard me say it a million times. It's one thing to learn how to quilt a swirl. It's a totally different thing to know where to use it on your quilt and how many different ways you can use it on your quilt. So we're not just focusing on this panel. I'm trying to give you skills that you can put towards future quilts. And then week 3, we're going to do another kind of ring around the block. The difference here is we're going to talk a little bit more about efficient quilting. And when I say efficient quilting, I'm not meaning like, oh, we're going to quilt as fast as we can to get stuff done. But how do we work our way through these blocks in a way that makes sense? I think when you start quilting, machine quilting, you're learning a design, and that's a whole skill right there. But once you know how to machine quilt, being able to work through your quilts in an efficient manner or in a way that works for you is going to make quilting a lot more enjoyable. So we're going to kind of hit on that. We're going to talk about echoing. We're going to do some fillers and combine different blocks. But the main idea here is how do we look at a set of blocks and how do we work through them in a way that makes sense? So it's kind of an abstract thought process, but I really think it's going to be a really good skill to apply. Now, week 4 is where it gets really fun because we're going to work in negative spaces. So in the video, I kind of joke, we're going to think outside the block and move to the backgrounds. And this kind of idea was kind of like more, was probably the one that took me a second to wrap my mind around, like what are the teachable moments here? But the idea being like, how can you approach an area of your quilt and adjust your quilting to fit it using as little marking as possible. So we're going to talk through like how can I combine rulers, how can I connect points on my quilt to make these designs, how can I use echoing and other fillers to really kind of make them pop. And again, one of those skills that we can apply to other quilts that we're working on. This is one of my favorite things to do. And if you've watched some of my live chats over the years, when I kind of talk through other quilts I've worked on, I'm kind of thinking about that English paper piece quilt I did. This is such a fun way to use the piecing kind of as a guide, because the quilting will automatically show it off, but then it's just a lot easier and a lot more fun. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to show you two different options for that. So we're going to see one where we quilt curves and other shapes, but we're also going to see how you can create quilt groupings like you can see here and use echoing to fill it in. So a couple different options. And the cool thing about it is, and I know I say this in the video too, so you'll hear it again, you can make this as complex or as simple as you like. If you're like, Angela, I'm done. I'm done quilting with rulers. I'm just going to do a filler in the background area. Perfect. Or you can do a couple of sections and then move on, or you can go crazy like I do. So my hope is that there will be something here for you no matter where you are in your quilting journey. If you're newer to machine quilting, that just means you don't have as many bad habits as the rest of us, and maybe just do a couple steps. But if you're like, I'm looking for some design inspiration, I want some, something to work towards, then you can really make it as difficult as you'd like. So you can see some options there. This was kind of fun because, sometimes when I'm planning out my videos, I already know what I'm going to teach before I start quilting, but sometimes I have to load the quilt and start quilting and okay, this is what we'll do here. So kind of fun to see kind of how it progresses through that. Now let's talk about thread placement, because these are some of the questions that usually come up once the videos start. And in thread placement, I'm really kind of talking about the coordinating thread collection I put together for the panel. So when it comes to thread placement, you can do whatever you think looks good. I've just picked colors that I think are perfect for your panel. They're the colors that I would use on there. And I can show you or give you suggestions on where you can put them. But what's cool about this panel is you can really kind of play with it. So if you're listening or watching and you're like, I want a rule to follow, Angela, tell me what to do. Well, I will give you some suggestions. But if you're watching and you're like, don't tell me what to do, then you do whatever you like. I definitely don't want to say it's the only way that it will look good. Now, I will say in the free quilting diagrams, we'll hear more about that here in a second, I have put this in those as well. So it has the thread placement in the diagram, so you don't have to worry about remembering everything I say. You can check that out. But basically what I did is I took kind of a mock-up of the panel and kind of assigned some different thread colors to the sections, and you can kind of see them here. Now, those colors represent thread color, so it's not fabric color, but so we can see that light blue, first of all, looks great in the center of the panel. You can also use it in the outside of your quilt, the background, which we'll talk about here in a second. I love the light blue because it kind of looks nice on, even though that center has that little bit of red, it still looks nice on there. And so it's just that kind of great little blender. But then if you want to change it up a bit, you can start moving towards the pink. And so as you work your way out from that center, you're kind of getting into the pinks and the purpley kind of blocks, and this just kind of blends right in. It's really going to blend in and show you the texture of the design without standing out and being like, oh, in your face. And then once we get to the rings of the quilt, my kind of thought process was we would do like a pink and then a darker one and then like a red and a darker one. I kind of imagine them like layers, but ultimately it's going to look good however you mix and match it. So my idea was the pink and the raspberry and that kind of paisley kind of purple would go in the rings. But if you're like I said, if you're wanting to know where to put it, I think it'd be kind of fun to put them in the rings like this. Now, depending how you work your way through the quilt, you might change that up, and we're going to talk about in the videos too. We're going to say like, oh, you can put this thread here, or how you travel through it. But ultimately, I think this looks really cool on your quilts. Now, when we talk about the background though, all that background area, it's kind of darker blue on the outside and it kind of gets lighter on the inside. I think it'd be really fun to use a combination of thread colors in that area, depending on how confident you're feeling. If you're like, I want the quilting to blend in because I don't want anybody to see it, then you can use that darker thread in that darker background area. But the colors, that red and that pink, they really are the same value as that dark blue. So even if you use it, it's going to show up a little bit, but it's not going to be like, wow, so in your face. So when you get to that point, if you're feeling a little ambitious, you can try using some of those different thread colors in the background. And I just kind of pulled this picture so you can kind of see what that looked like. Here I quilted some of those, those dot motifs in the darker purpley blue color. And then in the rest, I kind of switched that raspberry just to give it that cute little effect. But like I said, that's totally up to you. You can change it up depending on what you prefer. All right, here's where we get interesting, participating on a sewing machine. So what do you need to do before we get started? First of all, you need to make your quilt sandwich, whether it's the panel or fabric you have laying around, whatever you'd like to work with. And you can baste that in any method you prefer. So you can use pins or basting spray, fusible batting, whatever it is. Now, one question that usually gets asked is when I'm quilting in the video, you can't really see pins, and that's because I like fusible batting. That's just my personal preference. Having pins is kind of like roadblocks or speed bumps, and I don't like dealing with those. And it just lets me keep quilting. So that's how I like to work on it. So even though the quilt sandwich might not appear to be stabilized in the video, it actually is. So make your quilt sandwich, and then it's up to you whether you want to stitch along the seams of that panel. A lot of the designs that we're going to be learning use traveling to move from one block to the other. So it's not something I would necessarily suggest you need to do. But I know some of us like to go ahead and stitch along those fake seams, get everything kind of stabilized and start, and that's totally fine if you want to do that as well. If that's the case, go ahead and do that. If that makes you feel more comfortable, you can stitch around all those kind of outlines. I would use maybe that darker kind of purpley color because it kind of blends in through most of the colors, and then we can come back and fill them in. And like I said, we're going to start in the center of that panel and work our way out. In theory, my idea is that you would watch the video when it comes out and you would practice the design that week. You would join me for my live chat and ask me any questions you have about it, and then repeat every week. But I know that life gets in the way. Like, don't you wish we could just quilt 100% of the time? Like, I go to quilting retreats and I'm like, this is all I want to do. I just want to be a person who retreats and quilts. But real life gets in the way sometimes. These videos are up indefinitely. So you get to them when you can get to them, and just know that they're there for you whenever you're ready for them. And so working through that. Now let's talk about participating on a long arm. This is always a question. And really, as I think through the videos, each video I show the designs, some on a sewing machine, some on a long arm, kind of throw them, mix and match in there. One of the hard things is kind of planning something that works for both. And already, if you quilt on a long arm, you can already see starting in the center of the quilt is going to be a little bit of a pain. So if you're participating on a long arm, you kind of have a choice to make. You could either wait until all the videos come out and then work your way through that quilt top to bottom. Or if you're like, no, I want to quilt along with you, Angela, what you'll need to do is load your quilt and then kind of stabilize the pieces till you can get to the center and then work your way back and forth. So not the most efficient or ideal way to work through a quilt, but if you're wanting to quilt along with the videos, that's going to be your option. I understand it's kind of a pain. I think if I were participating, if I were watching this and I have my long arm, I would wait to the end and do it all at once. I definitely would not want to have the quilt on my long arm for a month, taking it up. But you could take it off and on. It just really kind of depends on your preferences or what you've got going on. But as we're working through the videos, I will be talking about things that are specific to long arm quilting. So there will be tips and tidbits there for you as well. So at that point, deciding how you're going to participate, and then you can either load your machine prior or wait to the end. It's totally up to you. Okay, as always, I will have quilting diagrams for you. So these will be diagrams that you can print out and take to your machine or your long arm and use as a reference. It's funny because I love a piece of paper. Like, I love having my notes. I like having something to look at right there. I know not everybody is that way, but in my mind, it just makes it easier so you can put it right next to you and enjoy that. So there'll be links to the diagrams that will when the videos come out. So you'll see that when that happens. And usually I put together expanded quilting diagrams, and this challenge is the case as well. Expanded quilting diagrams are just more information. So they're going to be about $8.99, more pages, more step-by-step instructions, more tips, something for somebody that needs a little bit more assistance, a little bit more information. So again, kind of deciding where you fall on that. But they're putting together the quilting diagrams takes just about as long as filming the videos and editing it. But again, I think it's just an important thing to have that next to you. And I think I'm just kind of projecting on you because that's what I would prefer. So there is that. Now, I know that seems like a lot, especially since the videos aren't going to start until January 20th, but I'm really excited to go over this and kind of talk through quilting with rulers. And if you're watching and you're thinking, oh, I might want to give that a try, I hope you do. I will say, like, in the beginning, it feels weird. Like, it's not something that feels natural, but I promise the more you work through it, the easier it is. And it's a lot more fun to practice with other people. I mean, it's something about, shared trauma or just quilting along together that makes it a good time. So if you want to learn more about the video series, if you're like, I don't even know what you're talking about, Angela, you can click the link in the description box below or visit quiltingismytherapy.com where it has all the details for that. But regardless, I'm super excited about it. I hope that you all are going to quilt along with me. It'll be a great time. So I'm going to answer any questions that we have. I will be back next Thursday with another live chat. So looking forward to that. All right. Is there still time to order the panel? There is. So go ahead and get your order placed as quickly as possible. Like I said, we do have a few left, so you should be able to get that. How do I sign up for the new challenge? This would have been something helpful to explain, huh? When the videos come up, or when the videos are released, they will be on my YouTube channel, but I'll also put links to them on our website. If you go to that link in the description box, it gives you the option to sign up to get email notifications. So basically, I'll email you a link to the video and some tips. So if you want to do that, you can definitely do that as well. Beyond that, it's not something you have to register for. You can still see the videos on my YouTube when they come out. I have a low shank machine. Can I use the regular rulers or do I need low shank? Oh, it depends. I hate that. So it depends on where the lowest part of your shank is and which direction you're quilting. So sometimes you can get away with working from the front or the side. Sometimes you can't. And one of the pleasures of my job is that every sewing machine is different. And so ultimately, I'm not sure. What you can do is go to your machine, put your foot down, and see if you can fit a ruler all the way around or what side you can. And then you can kind of decide from there. You might need low shank, especially for working with curves. But like I said, it doesn't have to be the ones I'm using as long as it's some kind of curved ruler. So I'm sorry I couldn't have a better option for that. I know it's kind of a pain. Will one spool of each thread be enough? Yes, it should be enough for it, unless you go like crazy and quilt it to death. If that's the case, then you'll have to get some more for sure. What color do I use in the bobbin? So I am quite spoiled with my pre-wounds. And so I used pre-wounds through the whole quilt, and I went with a darkish kind of gray. So that's what I used in all of it, especially since the whole front of the quilt panel is pretty similar in contrast. There's not a whole lot of like light or dark. If you wanted to, though, you could wind bobbins and use that glide, same color in the bobbin if you wanted. Both, it's totally fine. What fusible batting do I use? Does it stitch up nicely? So I like Quilter's Dream Fusion. Quilter's Dream is the brand, and Fusion is just the fusible batting. It quilts up lovely. I do love it. It's not too sticky, so it doesn't like gum up the needle, but it's sticky enough that it holds it together. So we have some for sale on our website. I think we have like a couple packages of that. So it's just really nice. I love it. But as long as it's a quality batting, it's going to look great. So great questions. I hope that made everything make a little bit more sense. If I didn't get to your question or you're like watching later, leave your questions in the comments. I get on there from time to time to answer them, and other quilters are really good to help out as well. So you could definitely check that out. In the meantime, our lucky winner is Leanne Mize. So Leanne, congratulations. You're getting my heart of mine. Just drop us an email at customerservice@quiltingismytherapy.com and we'll get that sent out to you. And if you're like, hey, I want to check out that Heart of Mine video, it's on my YouTube channel right now. So check it out. All right, everybody, I hope you had happy holidays. Your New Year's going great. I'm looking forward to really kicking off the new year with some fun quilting with rulers. Like I said, I'll be back next Thursday with a live chat. Topic TBD, to be determined, but I can't wait to do that. Until then, everybody, happy